Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Well, I think just to respect everyone's time, we'll get started and we hope more join us, of course. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to July's Partner Success webinar on top of funnel engagement. We're so excited you all are here, are spending some time with us. We hope that you learn some tips, some information, ways we can support you. Maybe you'll gain some ideas on things you can do to help with top of funnel engagement in ZeeMee. And as we kind of launch into this new admission cycle and you all start recruiting the class of 25. Few housekeeping items before we get started. This is being recorded, so we will send out that recording hopefully by tomorrow to you all. Once again, throw your name and where you're joining us from in the chat. Make sure it says to everyone. Hopefully that is what is set up for everyone, but make sure it's set to everyone so we can all see where you're from. Any questions throughout the webinar, throw them in the Q&A. We will have plenty of time at the end to answer any and all questions you all have. So don't be shy, put your questions in the Q&A feature. And with that, we'll get started. My name is Shauna Fulford. I am one of the directors of partner success here at ZeeMee. Joined ZeeMee just last year, but spent almost 12 years prior to that on the admissions side of things at a small private college here in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where I am located. We were a ZeeMee partner school. We had 3 of our largest classes during that partnership, and ZeeMee was a big part of that recruitment plan, building up that community sense of belonging right from the get-go. So super excited to now be on this side of the call, working with you all. I'm going to pass it over to Will.
Thank you, Shauna. Hey, y'all, I'm Will, and one of the partner success directors here at ZeeMee. And if you know me, you've been on these calls, that just means I'm your go-to guy for all things ZeeMee. So excited to talk to you about top of funnel stuff today with Courtney and Shauna. And again, the slide deck will be sent y'all's way in the recording. Have any questions, let us know. I'll pass it over to Courtney.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for joining us today. Pretty much the same intro as Shauna. No, I've been at ZeeMee. I'm a partner success director here as well. Been at ZeeMee for coming up on 3 years now, which is crazy. But I also come from the admissions side, was the director of admissions at a small private liberal arts school down here in Jacksonville, Florida, where I still live. So I saw a couple of other Florida folks in the chat, not too far from you all. But leverage ZeeMee both as an admissions counselor and in a leadership role. And I'm super excited every day about working with partners like you to help you maximize the tool. So yeah, really excited to jump into the conversation and talk about how to utilize ZeeMee at the top of the funnel and at the beginning of the recruitment cycle.
Awesome. Fantastic. And while Will gets the deck pulled up, want to make sure you all know there are still 2 other partner success directors, Devin Ross, who you all may know, and then Kelly Sullenberger. They are not with us today, but have no fear. They're still with ZeeMee. So if they are your partner success director, we'll make sure to tell them you all said hi. As far as what today's conversation is going to look like, once again, we want to highlight top of funnel engagement and the things you can do within ZeeMee to really encourage that engagement from the get-go. So we will be chatting about kind of the invitations to the 2025 cohort, doing kind of a quick internal office audit, making sure data is set up correctly, your office staff feels comfortable as we launch into the new recruiting cycle, platform utilization and some features you can use within the platform, highlight a unique fall package we have for our partners, and then of course some resources in our contact information. So with that, I'll pass it over to Will to get started.
Thank you, Shauna. Yeah, I'm going to talk real briefly about just inviting the 2025 cohort. And for us historically, you probably know, maybe you don't, we send a monthly SMS, ZeeMee does, as an invitation to students. And that typically begins for the next cohort in August. You can obviously talk with your partner success director, talk with us about if those things need to be changed, if it doesn't fit exactly what your institution does. But we are currently already community matching for the 2025 class. So if you go to your dashboard and you look at the overview spot, you'll see likely a number of 2025s already in community. And you may be inviting to 2025s. But outside of the community match piece, the monthly SMS invites will typically begin for us in October. Again, just want to make sure that your partner success director is aware of your on-campus event dates for the fall. We want to support the invite that we send on a monthly basis. We want it to work in concert with those events. Why would we necessarily send an invite on the first if you had an open house or an admitted student day. We want to make sure that it works in concert with those and sort of build the hype around your event as well. And then lastly, I'm going to be a little brief on this one, but please reach out to your partner success director if you want to talk about this more. It's really just that you can indicate, if you send ZeeMee a big list of inquiries for 2025, you can indicate top recruit as a variable in that data. So essentially adding a column that says top recruit to make sure those are the 2,500 inquiries we invite if you're a light partner. Those are the 10,000 inquiries we invite if you are a pro partner. To clarify briefly, we will invite on a monthly basis from all of your admits and beyond, but we're limited in the amount of inquiries we can invite for. And it kind of shows based on your package here. But instead of us randomizing from the list you send us, you can indicate who specifically you would like us to invite and sort of maximize ZeeMee's invitation efforts. And I think with that, I'll pass it back over to Shauna.
Awesome. Thank you. One thing that can be really beneficial for this time of year and before we really launch into the recruitment cycle is just kind of doing an internal office audit, making sure your office is set up for success as we start inviting students to your community and as you all start the recruiting process. So when it comes to the data side of things, we just want to make sure your data flow is set up for success. This might be setting up internal queries and reports that your counselors can receive, your directors can receive, that specifically pulls out certain ZeeMee attributes that you can then easily pull those reports, do that outreach to students. These attributes that you could run reports on include ZeeMee IDs, going indicators, engagement scores, the date they were last engaged on the platform. But it's a really great way for you to isolate lists down a little bit to maximize the outreach with the limited bandwidth you might have in your office. A couple of examples with ZeeMee ID, really great way to figure out who is on the platform, who is not, and then who to send those specific invitations to on your end. Students who are in the community convert at a higher rate. So the more students we can get into the platform, once again, building that community, kind of finding their place already at your institution, the better. So that's a really great list query you can get set up. So you want to make sure those ZeeMee IDs are coming back into your CRM. Another example would be engagement scores. When we send that data back to you, every student is given an engagement score. If you see students who are super highly engaged on the platform, but haven't yet applied to your institution, great list, really pared down the amount of students you have to reach out to, great list to reach out to, say, hey, we'd love to have you apply. Clearly, you seem very interested in our institution. So those are a couple great examples of reports that you can pull based on the information you can pull back into your CRM. Another example is maximizing your organic leads. ZeeMee by no means is lead gen, but it is a happy byproduct at times that you will have these students who are true organic leads that find themselves into your community. Those names, of course, get pushed back to you. So it's always great to right away, beginning of the cycle, have some comms set up where you can isolate those organic leads, send them information about your institution. Hey, come visit. We'd love to have you apply. So once again, not lead generation, but it is a happy byproduct that you might have a couple of those students. And then we also, we want to make sure that we are maximizing those text messages we sent out. We're inviting as many students as possible. So this is always a good time of year just to review your opt-in, opt-out policies to make sure that we are able to access as many students as we can when we send out those monthly SMS. Of course, always the perfect time of year too to do some internal office adoption audits, if you will, just making sure all your counselors have their profiles set up, that they are as completely flushed out as possible with a profile photo, a quick bio, maybe it lists the territory the counselor works with. But really, we want to make sure before we get into heavy recruiting season that those profiles are as flushed out as possible. We also know summer, there often is maybe office turnover or you're hiring new staff. So this is a great time too to make sure staff all have profiles. Let us know if they need that new profile link. But also if you just need refresher trainings, maybe you have new staff that has come on that has no idea how to access ZeeMee, or you just had staff that just kind of need that refresher on how to access different tools within the platform. contact your partner success director. We are more than happy to do those trainings for your staff, for your student influencers as well. And if you haven't, great time to start identifying who those student influencers in that team might be in your office. If you have those rock star ambassadors that just bleed for your school, they might be really great individuals to be on the platform to work with prospective students. Always great to have a wide variety of major interests or things like that for students. But now it's a great time to get that student influencer team put together if you haven't already. One of the things you can also turn on is chat triggered emails. This isn't something that's automatic, but something us partner success directors can definitely get turned on for you. We know you can't live in ZeeMee all the time, but we want to make sure that you are replying to students in a timely fashion, giving them the best customer service possible. So what we can do is we can set up chat triggered emails so that when a student does direct message you, you get notified right away and you can respond in a timely fashion. And of course, just make sure ZeeMee is included in all of your internal comms that you have. Any sort of campus visit invite links or, having QR codes in your office lobby, any sort of adoption we can have you all encourage, the better. It just helps pair with what we're going to do as well. So making sure your community links are in any sort of travel pieces, visit pieces, any visit presentations that you have, your email signatures, sending ZeeMee specific invite emails based on stage of the funnel. Anything that you can do to make sure ZeeMee is included in your on-campus communication, the better. Perfect. And here are just some examples that you can see of what other institutions have done to really encourage ZeeMee from their end as well.
Yeah, thanks, Shauna. I would just reiterate, I don't think you can overstate having these QR codes really anywhere you can put them. I can look at a percentage of deposited class in a community and tell pretty much from looking at that percentage if someone has those QR codes somewhere or not. Because the partners that do it have the highest percentage of their deposited class, highest percentage of really all the funnel states. And so happy to talk with any of you about that as needed. And so I'm going to take over for a minute and just talk about some of the platform features and how you can utilize them specifically for top of the funnel stuff. And I've got hopefully that's still showing up. Yeah, just got a couple of notes here about the Ask a Counselor and Ask a Current Student chat channels specifically. We talked internally, and if you're a school that provides sort of top level, excellent experience when a student's inquiring, connecting with them super early in the process. I mean, these can be really great ideas. Kind of ties back to what Shauna said about having some of your maybe additional counselors and staff onboarded and set up with those chat triggered emails. Again, you can get an email at your inbox if any message is posted in here. And you'll hear us talk about those chat triggered emails a little bit. But also,
Well, I was gonna say
go ahead.
I was gonna say before you move on, something that comes to mind for me too. I think we all know that in this next admission cycle, AI is coming, right? Like it's going to be part of the admissions process. So this is a real opportunity to provide that like still personalized human service to students that I think that they're still going to crave. I think there's definitely a place for AI. It can help us automate processes and become more efficient. But this is a really early opportunity in the cycle to showcase to students that, we care about you. We are going to specifically reply to your comment in ZeeMee. We're going to mention you with the information you asked for, as soon as you ask for it, and we're going to meet you where you're at to provide you with that information. So I think this is an opportunity to sort of stand out from the crowd when everyone's moving toward automated processes.
And I think this is also a really great place. We always tell our partners to stay out of that general chat, let the students own that. But you might start seeing common themes in that general chat with your prospective students asking about how do I apply? How long does it take to get an admissions decision? How do I turn in my transcript? You might see them start asking each other those types of questions. So if you start seeing those themes repeating, this is a really great place to kind of put the answers to some of those questions. Because anytime you post in the Ask a Counselor chat channel, those students that are a part of that chat channel are going to get notified and they're going to see that information. So great way for you to still monitor that general chat see what those themes are, and get them the correct answers to their questions in a place that's not necessarily that general chat as well.
Yeah, thank you, Shauna and Courtney. Moving on to now, you'll hear us talk about live events, and I'm sure many of you have hosted them, but this is specifically talking about the events tab in the app. And at that bottom navigational toolbar, you can see the one from the second from the right, looks like a little calendar, is where you're going to see, just like the feed, you're going to see all the events and hot tips for the schools you follow. And keep in mind, ZeeMee students on average follow multiple schools. And so when I'm looking at events here, you can see the upcoming ones and tap see all, and it'll look like this, kind of all the upcoming events. And for that stuff, why not include your open houses, your scholarship events, campus visits, and sort of, even integrate the campus visit link to drive students back to your website and fill that out and encourage those campus visits. All of that stuff takes, just, a minute or two to be able to put in there. And then it's, as opposed to a student pulling this up and not seeing any content from your school and seeing it from the others, you're going to have a place here. And, maybe they learned something they didn't already know. Maybe make it a little easier on them by clicking those links. Same thing for the hot tips. It's back here. If you click on the latest hot tips and see all, you're going to be taken to all the hot tips for those that of the schools that you follow. And for those hot tips, like how to apply, we're thinking of top of funnel stuff. When to apply, tips for applying, the application link. And again, more campus visit information if you like, but there are a number of ways that, whereas a student influencer might be putting best place to get coffee, I think an admissions office can really utilize these events and hot tips as well to be able to drive applications and campus visits. Anything else from either of you, Shauna or Courtney, before we move on?
Yeah, I was just going to add one thing about the events too, is there's kind of a social component with it too, which is really nice. So if a student sees an open house for a certain university they're interested in, they can star it. And then if another student is looking at that event, they can see what other students have been interested in that event. And so if Will and I have been talking a lot on ZeeMee, we're forming a friendship, and I see that he's interested in this open house, it might then influence me to also attend that open house, knowing that I'll have someone there who I've already connected with. So it's kind of nice that there's that built-in social component to putting your events in here and seeing who has been interested in those same events.
Thanks, Shauna. Yeah, and then lastly, bulk messaging. And if you're at the premier level, you have bulk messaging. If you're at the pro level, you can purchase it as an add-on, and we'll touch briefly on those things. But really, like, this tool, as you can see here, it lives in your desktop. You probably are aware of this if you've been on calls with us, but it's a conduit for you to be able to craft a ZeeMee DM to whatever population you want. And so when we're looking at, some of these examples, you can select freshmen with apps started for fall 2025, encouraging them to apply with your link. It's going to look like you took the time to write 7,000 DMs to all these students individually. It's going to, send to them in one fell swoop. Some of the messages that I think we think are pertinent for top of funnel, letting know that your university will be at a certain regional high school this Friday, that your university or your institution will be at a college fair at that high school. Again, can't overstate using this for application pushes, campus visit pushes. You will be able to select any of those students. Maybe, as Shauna mentioned at the beginning of the call, the highly engaged student, that student engagement level, that's a new field for us in bulk messaging. If you want to message all the students in your community who are the most active, but who haven't completed an application, just like we talk about in deposit season, there's a lot you could be able to communicate there and send those live links in the bulk messaging DM. Anything from you, Courtney or Shauna, before we move on?
Yeah. I think bulk messaging is one of our most versatile tools, right? You probably heard us talk a lot about bulk messaging during yield season, but I think it really does have a place at the start of the cycle, not just for these mass messages, right? Yes, like grab all of your inquiries, send them your application link. Particularly if you have like a ZeeMee fee waiver code, right? Which I'm probably jumping ahead here, but I think that this bulk messaging tool also can allow you to achieve some of your like specific institutional goals. So, I'm sure you guys have met with your partner success director or will be meeting soon to really set strategy for 2025. And one of the things that I'm always hearing from partners is, okay, well, one of our goals this year is to grow our nursing program, or we're starting a new music business program, that we're looking to get enrollments for. So something like bulk messaging, you can get so granular with how you filter these messages. You can filter them based on major. So you could grab any student who said that they're interested in music business, or you can filter based on interest. So the 300 plus interests that students can choose from. So you could say anybody who has, listed a guitar, saxophone, or, marching band, and try to see if you can promote your new music business program to those folks. So I think, not only can you do these broad messages that you're pushing out in other places, but you can get really specific. I also think, a couple of years ago, or probably 10 years ago, email was the way to go, right? Everyone was doing print mail, so we all moved to email. Then everyone was doing email, so we all started text messaging. Now, I don't know about you, especially, this year in an election year, I get so many text messages that are very clearly, it's almost like text message is the new email, where there's a level of students might be ignoring the text messages that you're sending, that are your application push or your visit push. So I think knowing that you have these engaged students in the community, you probably see in your numbers the thousands of DMs that they're sending each other. So this is another avenue where the message isn't going to get ignored, because again, you're meeting them where they're already at and where they're already communicating.
Thank you, Courtney. I believe we've got Shauna on deck.
Yeah. A few other ways you can utilize the platform and some other features we definitely want to highlight. Will talked about the Ask a Counselor, Ask a Student channel, but we don't ever want to forget about the announcements channel. This is a fantastic channel that gets a message in front of students the instant you press post. So any pertinent information, this is a great place to put that, to once again meet the students where they're at. They're going to get this message. They're going to get a notification the minute you hit post. The announcements channel lives in your everyone group. Eventually in your admitted students, there's an announcement channel, and committed student groups as well. But for the everyone, so all of your inquiries, the minute you post in this announcements channel, however many thousands of students are going to get notified of that information you want to share with them. This is a really great example here that we have from St. Norbert. If you have any information about students coming to visit campus and how they can do that, how to apply, application deadlines, maybe there's an additional scholarship students can apply for that has a deadline. There's been a change to something in the application that you want these students to know about. Great place to post it. It is read only, so students can engage with it, but they'll see that information. You can link directly to the link or the URL that you want them to go to complete that action item. But once again, this is a really great way to get that information, especially about application deadlines or scholarships, directly in front of the students. Open house information, just once again, a really good way to add that into the platform. Courtney, do you want to chat about that ZeeMee waiver code? This might be a good
Yeah, I know.
information for
I
that
told
too.
you I skipped ahead.
No, you're good.
But no, I think this was something we leveraged at my former institution, where even though our application was free, and truthfully, I think there are a lot of folks who, even if you don't have a code, you have a free application at this point. But fee waiver codes, if you do use them, are a great way to track where the student is coming from, or sort of one of the sources that encourage them to apply. So if you are an institution that utilizes waiver codes, I would encourage you to create one for ZeeMee. Just again, helps with understanding where are some of our application leads coming from. So, ZeeMee 2025, and if you're okay giving that out to all students, you could put it here in the announcement channel. It could go out in a bulk message. It could, go out in an email. But I do think that, using waiver codes can help you track the efficacy of, app gen through ZeeMee.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney. Perfect. Some more ZeeMee features that you can definitely add into your community. One we definitely want to highlight is the apply button. We want to get as many students as we can to apply to your institutions. And the apply button is a dynamic button that lives right there on your community's profile page, can also live in your chat drawer, as you can see on the right-hand side. But this allows you to get your application link directly in front of the students. Once again, students are in the platform, I think, what is it, 12 to 15 times a day. So why not get that application link directly in front of them where they already are? When a student clicks on this button, it does then drive them to your application to your website. So they won't apply on ZeeMee, it'll drive them to yours. But once again, it's another way to get the information to the students where they already are at. You also get the data pushback. So you'll see which students clicked on the button. And then that way we can kind of keep track of those students to see how they progress throughout your funnel as well. And then this can be a dynamic button. So as we move through the cycle, right now it makes sense for it to be an apply button. Maybe at one point it'll make sense for it to be a visit button or a commit button. But once again, another really great feature that you can add to your community to get your application in front of your prospective students.
Yeah, and Shauna, just one more point on the apply button, right? As you mentioned, we track the students who click the button. So, it's possible that the first time a student clicks, they're not going to immediately start or finish their application. But because we send that data point back to you, you could then on your end in your CRM say, okay, anyone who clicked this button who hasn't applied, we're going to trigger another application email to them. Kind of strike while the iron is hot. We know they just clicked this button this week. So let's go ahead and, get something in their inbox as soon as we can. So, part of it is obviously driving them to apply, but part of it is awareness and then tracking for you to identify those sort of hand raisers and people who at least have intentions of applying. Awesome. Okay, competitor match. I would say this is one of our most effective top of funnel tools. And some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may not. And the apply button, competitor match, and peer community messaging. If you're at that pro level, these are all things that we can, add. Not typically included in the pro level partnership, but are part of our premier level partnership. So feel free to reach out to any of us if you have additional questions. But competitor match is essentially the ability to drive students who are following other institutions that you compete with into your ZeeMee community, right? So you'd work with your partner success director to identify, let's say, 5 competitors, and we'd work with you to strategize on, a range of, really true application crossover, a couple schools who are going to provide you with good volume. Students who are following those communities log into ZeeMee, they'll see something like this. So it's sort of a non-invasive, non-intrusive ad, right? It looks like ZeeMee is suggesting that I go take a look and check out this other school. When a student clicks join the community or check it out, they immediately are followed to your ZeeMee community. They are immediately dropped into the chats. So they start connecting with other students who are interested in you. They start seeing the content from your student influencers. They see everything you post in your announcement channel. They're invited to your live events. So it's a way it's sort of a new type of lead generation where it's less about sort of the volume of lead generation, but the immediate impact that we can have when we introduce that lead into your community, right? When we think about the traditional way things are done, you purchase a name, right? So you just purchase data, and then you have to do all the work to convert that student. You have to add them into a drip campaign. You have to mail them things, you have to send emails. Here, your other prospective students start doing the work for you immediately, because the student gets taken, from a community that probably doesn't have a lot of engagement because we're targeting these like non-ZeeMee partner institutions, and they're dropped into your engaging dynamic community. So great way again to get new, completely unknown to you students into your funnel through ZeeMee. So that's sort of how the process works. And then you get the data back as well, right? So now these students are included in your touch point data at whatever frequency you receive that. So you can sort of mark them as organic leads. You can do some additional follow-up. And then this year, with the competitor match, we're also going to help with the conversion by sending a bulk message to students who come to your community through that competitor match, right? We know that those students know less about you. So we're going to help try to convert those students into an applicant, into hopefully an admitted and committed student, by doing a little bit of additional communication and messaging. So like the simplest way to think about this too is, I think students are familiar with this concept, right? It's like when you go on Amazon and they say, because you checked this out, you might also like this. So same concept, just again, driving students who are a good fit, looking at similar institutions into your community instead. Peer community messaging is sort of like a mashup of bulk messaging and competitor match, right? So it's the ability to send a ZeeMee DM to those students who are, again, following competitor institutions. The main difference between the competitor match and the peer messaging, right? Competitor match is that pop-up where the call to action is join, this institution's ZeeMee community, the students jumping into your community right away. The peer community messaging allows you to control the CTA and you control the messaging, right? So instead of saying, hey, we'd love for you to join our community, you can direct them right to your application, right? You could provide them a fee waiver code. You could say apply for free. You could promote, our early action deadline is November 15th, and we promise to have a decision to you before the winter holidays. You completely control what that message says and what the call to action is. And you can also craft that message specifically around the institution that you're competing with here. So you may highlight your unique selling points in comparison to that institution. So you can get a little bit more creative and have a little bit more control with this one. And honestly, they work really well in tandem with each other because you can have the competitor match running where you're driving students into the community, and that same group of students, you can then sort of massage the messaging here with the DMs and driving them again to your app to visit, promoting some of your unique selling points.
Thanks, Court. Yeah, so these are just a look at some of what we were talking about. Competitor match, you saw the apply now button. Again, in the last couple of slides, the monthly ZeeMee direct message to inquiries, sort of, the same thing as a one-time bulk message being sent to inquiries. You could have either one of these as an add-on individually. We could talk about packaging them together. One note there on that is just that, I mean, we obviously know finances may still be in flux this year, so ZeeMee was very intentional in the pricing of these features to help our partners navigate, budgets post FAFSA chaos and all that. But if you want to learn more about them and get quotes, obviously talk to us, reach out to your partner success director, and we'll get you taken care of. The pricing specifically for this fall, and if you remember last year, like we did specific like fall features after NACAC last year, and it's for like a time frame of a few months, with the pricing being super attractive. So that's what that looks like for us. Sean, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if anybody has more questions, feel free to throw them in the Q&A. We do have a couple here, and anyone can answer these. How have partners utilized ZeeMee for fall open houses on campus?
Yeah, I can jump in with a couple of things that I've seen. So I think one, there's an opportunity to promote the open houses, right? If you're trying to drive registration for the open houses, you can post feed content that links out to, the open house registration link. You can post about it in the announcement channel. So I think those are basic things that, most of us already know. Some of the more creative things that I've seen, I think the most effective thing is hosting a live event right before the open house. So I think that, if you are having an open house on a Saturday and you can host a live speed friending on a Thursday, 2 days before students get to campus, that can be really effective because now you've generated all this excitement. You introduce people who are now showing up to campus looking for their friends. And then that generates a lot of buzz about ZeeMee on campus, right? So those students who maybe haven't joined yet or haven't heard about ZeeMee are now hearing about it from their peers. I think, something too that we probably should have said at the beginning, but just to ground this conversation, like, why do we want students to join ZeeMee early? Like, we know that students who join ZeeMee as an inquiry, they are 2 times more likely to apply, and they're more likely to move through the funnel all the way to yield, right? We know the students on ZeeMee are 4 times more likely to yield. So if we can get them to apply at twice the rate, yield at 4x the rate, and we have a full cycle to influence their, affinity for you, that to me is sort of the key of the key point of the conversation here, right? It's great anytime we can get students in. If we can get them in once they're admitted, once they're committed, awesome. But if we can get them in as an inquiry, that's really where we have the most potential for impact.
Yeah, and I would just add too that like I have some partners that'll have a chat channel open 7 days before the open house and encourage students to connect with each other there before they arrive. And anecdotally, we hear all the time like those 50 or 100 students that already knew each other when they got here, and we wondered how, and it was from ZeeMee.
Mhm.
And so I don't think there's a lot of downside to those. I always say to my partners, like, not a lot of downside. If the channel is not received that well, we're going to archive it after the event anyway. And so, yeah, just a lot of potential and not a ton of downside, and something you're probably already paying for. So, some of the things my partners have done for open houses.
Awesome. And this kind of goes along with it, kind of partner or piggybacks off of what Courtney was just talking about. But when do you recommend and what kind of live events do you see most successful with this new cohort when you're looking at mostly inquiries? When do you recommend kind of that first live event, and then which ones have been most successful? Which type of events?
Ooh. Yeah, I think in terms of timing, I would love for us to look into the data around this, but my instinct says, maybe like October or November. As you probably see the same pattern in your application influx, it takes a little while for students to really get in the full swing of like the college admissions process. So we will see students, coming into ZeeMee in August, in September. I mean, even Shauna said you guys have 2025 students already following you, but we'll really see that start to like pick up in the first couple months of the cycle. So I think by October, most communities will have enough students where it could be a really successful and engaging live event. And I had a great conversation with a partner yesterday where they were reflecting about two events that they've done recently. One was one of my absolute favorites. It was like a photo scavenger hunt where they created prompts for students and said, okay, share a photo from your camera roll about, like one of your hobbies. Show us you in your school gear. Show us, what you're currently reading or watching. And students replied in. The second event they did was more of a like, what do you meme type thing where they came up with a scenario. Students responded in with like a funny GIF or photo or some, meme. Both events were successful, but they were self-reflecting and said, we think the first one was way more successful because it allowed the students the opportunity to share things about themselves. And I thought that was a really awesome observation because we could see it in the event. We could see the conversations that were being sparked because someone shared a picture of a blanket they crocheted and someone else was like, "Whoa, you crochet? Me too." And those students probably are now having like a DM conversation about that, right? So I think as you're planning your live events, whether it's a speed friending or, this type of photo scavenger, whatever it might be, think about allowing students the opportunity to share a little bit of themselves and make those personal connections, because I think that's what creates a successful event.
Yeah, I would just add that the stuff that Courtney's talking about, I mean, just remember two major things. If you let ZeeMee know when your event's going to be through that request scheduler in our link tree, then we give you the post-event data. And without that, you could run the event the same way, but that data is really a piece I think maybe is not taken advantage of as much as I think it could be. And by that I mean, the events are fun. I always say this to my partners, like, who doesn't love fun, right? But after the event, like, how can we use it? And even the ones that I think maybe are less than well received, I've always told partners, like, if it's a smaller graph on the bar chart, that is still actionable. You still, something good came from that. Because when you do an event a month and then you look at the breadth of the 12 months, well, you can then look and say, all right, well, maybe all the events that weren't that well received were done on a Tuesday. Let's not do that anymore. And the ones that were great, maybe they were of a specific topic or day or time. So all that to say that not just the event type and date, actionable data there, another indicator of demonstrated interest from your students to see who was the most active student in these events, who's joined the most events. They may not be in your high bucket. They may not have told you they're going, but if they join 3 events and they're super active, I mean, that's just another piece that you can be using to utilize the data after the event.
And there are so few ways to truly keep students engaged through the fall, right? Like we get them to campus. That's the main thing. Getting them to apply, getting them to campus. Those are the two main things that we're looking to do. But really, those aren't sort of long-term engagement strategies. That's, applying is obviously that's the main thing we're all here for. So they apply, admit, and get enrolled. But the visit, you get them really engaged on that day during those couple of hours, but then they leave. So while you have them really engaged there on your visit, I think, something to think about is like, what about the ride home? What about the next day? What about when they want to talk to their friends about what a great time they had on campus? So I think, ZeeMee sort of fills that gap during the fall, where there's not a lot of other stuff going on. Yeah, file your FAFSA, hopefully. Everybody cross your fingers. But that's not exciting for them. The exciting stuff all happens in the spring when they can start talking about housing and what classes they're taking and, the huge admitted student days and orientations. But the fall is a little bit of a desert for that type of engagement. So I think that's where ZeeMee slots in really nicely. And, we all know at some point soon, there will be fewer students available to recruit. So it's not going to be an option to just do more, right? Like fill the top of the funnel with names. What we're really going to need to do is recruit better, earlier, right? Like that's going to be the only option, is to do a better job with the amount of names that you have. So I think that's really where we feel like moving this engagement up the funnel can have a huge impact, right? Employing all those strategies that you were employing in the spring during yield season in the fall, so that we can see the impact on, not just your admitted students, but on your inquiries and your organic leads and your early applicants.
Perfect.
For questions?
That is it that we have right now. Thank you all for submitting your questions. If you have any after today, of course, email your partner success director. We are more than happy to help answer any and all questions that you all have. On behalf of myself, the other partner success directors here and not here, we want to thank you all for joining us today. We know how busy this summer is. Recruiting for this fall hasn't stopped yet. So for you all to find time to join us today, we really do appreciate it. We appreciate the support. Hopefully you all gained some information, some ideas that you can take with you as we start recruiting for this next cycle. Once again, this recording will be sent out to you all. Hopefully you have that by tomorrow, Monday at the latest, but don't hesitate to reach out with any other questions. And thank you for joining us today.
See you guys. Thank you.
Everybody.